Let me start by saying something that may rattle your soul a little. If you've lived the first 40 years of your life trying to please everyone, fit in, play it safe, and avoid confrontation, good, that was your training. But now, the real game begins. Real life begins when you stop needing approval and start owning your truth. This isn't just a motivational catchphrase, it's a shift in consciousness. For much of our early lives, we're programmed to seek external validation. We want to make our parents proud, earn the admiration of our peers, gain recognition from our employers. We chase degrees, titles, and praise, believing that if enough people approve of us, we must be doing something right. We try to be agreeable, likable, non-threatening. We dim our light, second-guess our instincts, and mold ourselves into what the world seems to want from us. It's a survival strategy, but one that slowly eats away at who we really are. But there comes a moment, often around the age of 40, when the chase for approval starts to feel hollow. You look around at your life and realize that despite all your efforts to please others, something is still missing. That something is you. Not the version of you that you show the world. Not the curated, polished, socially acceptable mask. But the real you. The one who has opinions that may not be popular. The one who dreams a little differently. The one who has fire in their soul, depth in their pain, and wisdom in their scars. Owning your truth means standing in that version of yourself without flinching. It means you no longer measure your worth by how many people clap when you speak, or how many approve of your choices. You stop filtering yourself to fit into rooms that don't value what you bring. You stop chasing applause from people who are not even paying attention. The minute you let go of the need to be accepted by everyone, you gain the freedom to fully accept yourself. This shift is powerful. When you stop needing approval, you start moving from intention instead of insecurity. You speak because you have something to say, not because you want people to like you. You choose your actions based on your values, not because you're afraid of disappointing someone. Your yes becomes meaningful, and your no becomes non-negotiable. You stop tolerating disrespect, both subtle and overt, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. And here's what happens next: the people who truly see you stay. The ones who only like the mask drift away. And that's a blessing. When you start owning your truth, you may lose the approval of others, but you gain something far more valuable: clarity. Clarity on who you are, what you stand for, and where you're going. You're no longer driven by fear of rejection but by the desire to live honestly. That kind of honesty is magnetic. It repels what's not for you and attracts what is. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes from no longer needing to explain or justify who you are. You become rooted, solid, whole. Your confidence no longer wavers in the presence of louder voices. You no longer feel the need to shrink when someone else is uncomfortable with your power. You don't demand that the world love you. You simply become someone who loves themselves enough to walk away from what doesn't align. This is what makes people truly powerful. Not their wealth, not their status, but their ability to live truthfully in a world that constantly tries to shape them into something else. Truth is dangerous to those who thrive on control and manipulation. When you no longer need approval, you can't be easily manipulated. You become harder to lie to, harder to gaslight, harder to silence. That kind of clarity threatens people who benefit from your doubt. And that's why many people never make it to this point. They remain stuck in a loop of people pleasing, constantly adjusting themselves to fit in, all while losing pieces of their identity. They wake up at 40, 50, even 60, realizing they built a life around expectations that were never truly their own. The house, the job, the relationship, it all looks good from the outside but feels misaligned on the inside. Because it wasn't built from truth. It was built from fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of being alone. Fear of being seen and not accepted. But when you decide to stop living for approval, you stop building a life on sand. You start building it on bedrock, your truth. It may take courage. You may feel alone at first. But that solitude won't last. Because there's a different kind of tribe that finds you when you're living authentically. People who don't need you to be less than, so they can feel enough. People who don't need you to pretend so they can be comfortable. These people don't just respect you, they recognize you. Because they, too, are living from that same truth. The truth is not always glamorous. It's not always neat. It doesn't always make you popular. But it will set you free. And once you've tasted that freedom, you can't go back to the cage, not even if it's gold-plated. So if you're at a point in your life where the applause feels empty, where the compliments no longer comfort you, where you feel like you're wearing a mask you've outgrown, good. That means you're waking up. That means your real life is about to begin. Because the moment you stop needing approval, you start listening to yourself, and your voice, when it's honest, will never steer you wrong. Own your truth. Let it cost you what it must. Because the only thing more painful than losing people who don't love the real you is living your entire life without ever being fully yourself. Real life begins not when others say you're enough. Real life begins when you finally believe it. Being dangerous doesn't mean being reckless, impulsive, or a threat to others. It means becoming someone who is unshakably self-aware. A person who understands their power, owns their voice, and moves through life with clarity and purpose. When you're dangerous in this way, you are no longer controlled by fear, guilt, or other people's opinions. You don't swing wildly with every challenge or confrontation. You become composed, intentional, and deeply rooted in who you are. Too often, society associates danger with aggression. But that's not the kind of danger we're talking about here. Real danger, the kind that transforms lives, is calm, measured, and grounded. It's a woman who walks into a boardroom and commands the space with presence, not volume. It's a man who no longer needs to prove his worth because his life already reflects it. It's anyone who has done the inner work to know exactly what they stand for, and refuses to bend that for comfort or approval. Self-awareness is not some soft, philosophical luxury. It's power, and it's earned. You get it by confronting your patterns, healing from your wounds, and taking full accountability for the way you show up in the world. When you do that, you begin to see things as they are, not as you wish they were. You see people clearly. You understand your triggers. You no longer need to be reactive because you know what's driving your emotions. That kind of emotional intelligence is rare and powerful. When you're truly self-aware, you stop being dangerous to yourself. You stop self-sabotaging. You stop staying in relationships that drain you, workplaces that devalue you, or habits that keep you stuck. You can spot manipulation a mile away. You can sense when someone is trying to control you with guilt or fear. And you simply don't take the bait anymore. That's dangerous to people who rely on your confusion to get their way. That's threatening to those who expect you to stay silent or small. Becoming dangerous in this way doesn't mean you always have the upper hand. It means you don't need to play games to feel strong. You no longer need the last word. You don't need revenge. You don't need to be the loudest or most liked. You just need to be clear. You need to know who you are and what your boundaries are. And then protect those boundaries with quiet conviction. A self-aware person knows how to walk away without drama. They know how to stand their ground without exploding. They can say, no, without explanation, and yes, without guilt. They've moved past the need to be understood by everyone. They'd rather be real than be liked. They'd rather be respected than pitied. And they no longer fear being alone because they're finally at peace with themselves. This kind of danger doesn't wear a costume. It doesn't need a spotlight. It's not performative. It's not about intimidating others. It's about no longer being intimidated. When you're self-aware, you stop confusing humility with self-erasure. You can be humble and still speak with authority. You can be kind without being a doormat. You can love others without abandoning yourself in the process. Many people are afraid of becoming dangerous in this way, because it means shedding layers of who they thought they needed to be. It means letting go of the stories you've told yourself about what you deserve. It means ending the performance of perfection, saying goodbye to people who only loved your silence, and giving up the illusion that safety comes from staying small. But the truth is, the world doesn't benefit from your smallness. No one is served by your self-doubt. Your family, your community, your future self, they all rise when you do. And they rise even higher when you rise with integrity. Let's be clear, self-awareness doesn't make life easier. It makes you stronger. It gives you the resilience to handle challenges without collapsing. It gives you the wisdom to see the bigger picture, the discipline to choose long-term growth over short-term comfort, and the courage to face your own flaws without shame. This kind of growth is not for everyone. Some people will never choose it. They'll stay reactive, stuck in blame, and afraid of their own reflection. But you, if you've come far enough to start asking deeper questions, to stop numbing, to stop faking it, then you're already on your way. The dangerous version of you is not louder or more aggressive. It's more discerning, more direct, more deliberate. You don't waste your energy explaining your worth to people who can't see it. You don't get entangled in chaos that doesn't belong to you. You've mastered the art of detachment, not because you don't care, but because you've learned to care deeply about the right things. Imagine how different life feels when you know exactly who you are. You're no longer defined by roles or labels or someone else's idea of success. You become impossible to control through fear. No one can hold your past over your head. No one can manipulate your emotions without you recognizing it. That's the kind of danger the world needs more of. Not the kind that destroys, but the kind that every liberates. Dangerous people in this sense aren't violent. They're as unshakable. They're the ones who refuse to be broken by what they've been through. They're the ones who've turned their pain into wisdom. They've walked through fire and come out not hardened but sharpened. Clear, awake, alive. When you are self-aware, your energy changes. You stop hustling for attention. You start focusing on alignment. You stop settling for crumbs because you've realized that you were always the table. And you start choosing peace, not because you're afraid of conflict, but because you've realized your peace is too expensive to waste. So the next time you hear the word dangerous, remember this: it doesn't mean wild or chaotic. It means awake. It means emotionally intelligent. It means powerful in a way that cannot be bought or bullied. That's who you become when you choose self-awareness. And once you become that person, nothing, and no one, can take that power from you. At 40, your experiences become your edge, not your excuse. This is a powerful turning point in life, where everything you've lived through starts to make sense in a new way. All the failures, the setbacks, the heartbreaks, the disappointments, they stop being burdens and start becoming weapons. The struggle no longer defines you as a victim. It sharpens you. It refines your judgment. It builds a deeper version of strength, one rooted in clarity and earned wisdom. That is your edge. Too often, people reach a certain age and begin to believe that time has passed them by. They look at the younger generation and feel they've missed the boat, that opportunity is no longer available to them, that risk is too high, and that they are too late. But that belief isn't true. It's a narrative created by a culture obsessed with leap and speed. What it overlooks is that lived experience has a value no shortcut can replicate. The years behind you weren't wasted. They were foundational. Every moment taught you something, even the ones that broke you. And now, with 4 decades behind you, you don't move blindly. You move with awareness. At 40, you've likely encountered enough life to know what doesn't work. You've seen patterns in relationships. You've witnessed who stays and who only comes around when it's easy. You've learned that peace is more valuable than attention. That validation is internal, not outsourced. You understand that energy is finite and not everyone deserves access to yours. These are lessons people can't learn from books or theory. They are earned, sometimes through hardship, and sometimes through brutal honesty with yourself. But once they're integrated, they give you a kind of power you never had at 20 or even 30. Your edge is that you no longer operate from illusion. You've seen behind the curtain. You know what fake looks like, what manipulation feels like, and what true intention sounds like. You are no longer easily impressed, but you are deeply moved by realness. You don't chase shiny things because you know substance lasts longer. That's the advantage of having been through enough to tell the difference. You've had time to build emotional intelligence, which allows you to respond instead of react. To walk away with dignity instead of engaging in battles that drain you. To protect your peace like it's sacred. Because now you know it is. This edge you've developed is not bitter, it's precise. It's not hardened, it's wise. You've learned that not everything deserves a response. That silence can be more powerful than argument. That walking away doesn't mean defeat. It often means you've won something far more important: control over your own energy. The world tries to tell you that youth is your most valuable asset. But what good is youth if you have no direction? What good is energy if you have no discernment? At 40, you finally have both the compass and the strength to move in the right direction. And that's what makes you dangerous in the best way. You're not here to prove anything to anyone anymore. That season is over. You've already learned what it feels like to compromise yourself to fit in. You've seen what happens when you silence your voice to maintain harmony. You've tasted the regret of saying yes when everything in you was screaming no. And you've felt the slow erosion of self when you live according to someone else's version of your life. That pain? It wasn't for nothing. It built a foundation of truth that now informs every decision you make. It is your advantage, not your excuse. Too many people hide behind their past instead of standing on it. They say, it's too late. Or, I missed my chance. Or, I've already messed up too much. But that mindset keeps them small. It turns wisdom into a wall instead of a weapon. If you're 40 or older, your best years are not behind you. They're just now coming into focus. Why? Because now you finally know how to handle them. If you succeeded earlier, you might not have been ready. You might have sabotaged it. But now, your inner house is stronger. Your boundaries are clearer. Your values are non-negotiable. And that makes you more prepared than you've ever been. You've become skilled at something younger versions of you didn't understand. Letting go. Letting go of what isn't yours to carry. Letting go of perfection. Letting go of old identities that no longer serve you. This ability to release rather than cling is part of your edge. You're not chasing anymore. You're attracting, aligning, moving intentionally. You've realized that life isn't about being everything to everyone. It's about being exactly who you are, fully, for the right people, the right mission, the right future. There's a confidence that can only come from surviving your own story. Not glossing over it, not pretending it was all perfect, but facing it, accepting it, and using it. That resilience is what fuels real leadership, real influence, real purpose. People can feel it. They trust someone who's been through fire and still shows up without bitterness. They follow people who've fallen, gotten back up, and kept their integrity intact. That's who you are becoming. That's what your life experience has equipped you to do. Don't downplay your journey because it didn't go as planned. Plans change, people leave, things fall apart, but the real power is in how you responded, how you learned, how you grew. Every misstep refined your character. Every wrong turn showed you what matters. Every breakdown opened a doorway to something deeper. So stop carrying your past like it's a wound and start wearing it like armor. It's not proof that you're damaged. It's proof that you're still standing, and that you've got something valuable to say. The edge you carry at 40 is that you are no longer asking for permission to be who you are. You're no longer waiting for someone else to believe in you before you take the leap. You understand the cost of staying stuck, and you're not willing to pay it anymore. You move with intention, with purpose, and with courage, even when the path is uncertain. Because at this point, you've realized that uncertainty is not the enemy. Stagnation is. This is the most powerful decade of your life. Not because it's perfect, but because you've finally stopped pretending you need to be. The pressure to impress is gone. The desire to belong to places you've outgrown is fading. What's left is clarity, strength, and a quiet fire that doesn't need to announce itself. That fire is your edge. Use it. Let it guide you into the next chapter. Not with fear, but with full ownership. You are not too old. You are not behind. You are precisely where you're meant to be. Now, the only question is, will you use what you've lived through to build something greater? Or will you keep making excuses for why you haven't started? Your story is not your shame. It's your strategy. And it's time to let it sharpen you, not silence you. Respect is earned through transformation, not survival alone. Surviving life's challenges is a beginning, not an end. It's the raw material, not the finished product. You can go through hell and back, but if you don't change from it, if you don't grow, shift, evolve, then all you've done is endure. Endurance is admirable, yes. But transformation, that's where real power begins. That's when you move from simply existing to leading, from being hurt to becoming wise, from being broken to becoming whole on your own terms. And that's what earns respect. We often hear people say, "You have no idea what I've been through," as if pain alone is a badge of honor. But pain by itself doesn't give you authority. Everyone's been through something. It's not the struggle that sets you apart. It's what you do with the struggle. How you change. What you choose afterward. Who you become. Respect isn't handed out for the number of storms you've endured. It's given when people witness the strength, grace, and clarity you've built because of them. Transformation demands something far more difficult than simply surviving. It demands honesty. Brutal, uncomfortable honesty. It requires that you face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. The pain you never processed. The truth you never spoke. The dreams you buried under fear. Transformation is not convenient. It doesn't happen by accident. It's a deliberate choice to stop being who you were taught to be and start becoming who you really are. That process. That's what earns the kind of respect that doesn't need to be demanded. It simply is. Survival often keeps people in a loop. They stay in fight, or flight, stuck in patterns that once protected them but now limit them. They stay loyal to dysfunction because it's familiar. But transformation breaks that loop. It asks you to step outside the roles that once kept you safe. It asks you to release the identity built on pain, to give up the version of yourself who only knew how to cope. That's hard. That's terrifying. But that's where you begin to earn your own respect. And eventually, the respect of others. There's a certain kind of quiet, powerful energy in someone who has done the inner work to transform. They no longer need to convince you of who they are. You feel it. You see it in their boundaries, in the way they carry themselves, in the calm in their voice. They've moved past performance. They no longer seek validation from the outside because they've already validated themselves from within. And that, more than any story of survival, commands attention. Survival can make you tough, but transformation makes you wise. Survival might give you a shield, but transformation gives you a compass. One protects, the other guides. There's a difference between a person who can take a hit and someone who knows how to heal. The former is impressive. The latter is powerful. Because healing requires vulnerability. It requires surrendering ego. It demands that you admit, I can't live like this anymore. Something has to change. And that something is me. People respect what they see in themselves, or what they aspire to become. And most people aren't looking for someone who's merely endured. They're looking for someone who's done the work to turn pain into purpose. Someone who's used adversity to sharpen character. That's why transformation matters. It makes you a mirror. It shows others what's possible. You become living proof that you can go through the worst and still come out with dignity, self-respect, and direction. You don't earn respect by shouting about your past. You earn it by showing what you've built from it. You don't earn it by blaming others. You earn it by owning your part and choosing a higher road. The people who walk away from patterns that were destroying them. The ones who step up instead of spiraling down. They carry a kind of authority that can't be faked. Because you can't buy transformation. You can't borrow it. You have to live it. Respect rooted in transformation is the kind that lasts. It's not dependent on performance, success, or appearance. It's built on consistency, authenticity, and growth. And it shows up in how you treat others. When you've truly transformed, you don't need to dominate people. You don't use fear to lead. You don't need to put others down to lift yourself up. You become grounded, open, steady. And that steadiness is rare. It's magnetic. People are drawn to it, not because it's loud, but because it's real. But transformation doesn't mean you forget where you came from. It doesn't mean you dismiss your pain or your past. It means you use it. You own your story, but you're no longer owned by it. You're not reacting from old wounds anymore. You're responding from new awareness. You're not trying to prove yourself. You're living in truth. And truth, unapologetic, unpolished, unshakable truth, is what earns the deepest kind of respect. This is especially true when the world expected you to break. When everything around you gave you reasons to give up or stay small, and you still rose anyway. Not with arrogance, but with purpose. You made the choice to grow when no one was watching. You made the choice to heal without applause. That internal victory, that's the most important one. It's where all external respect is born. Because before anyone can respect you, you have to respect yourself. And self-respect only comes from doing the hard work no one sees. There's no shortcut to this, no quick fix. Transformation takes time, pain, reflection, and action. It requires setting boundaries, often with people you once loved. It requires choosing peace over chaos, even when chaos feels familiar. It requires changing your habits, shifting your mindset, and sometimes walking alone. But eventually, the people who matter, the ones who are also growing, will recognize the work you've done. They'll see it in how you carry your silence, how you don't rise to every challenge, how you protect your energy like it's sacred, and they'll respect it. So, yes, you've survived. That's something to be proud of. But don't stop there. Let your survival be the starting line, not the finish. Choose transformation. Choose the difficult, often invisible work that turns your pain into peace and your past into power. That's where your real strength lies. That's where true respect is born. Not from what happened to you, but from what you chose to become because of it. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be respected. That may sound simple, but it is one of the most liberating truths you can ever accept. It changes how you walk into rooms. It shifts how you speak. It shapes how you live. When you let go of the need to be liked, you stop molding yourself to fit in. You stop watering down your voice to keep others comfortable. You stop trading authenticity for approval. You become grounded, clear, dangerous in the most powerful way. For much of life, especially in your younger years, you're taught, subtly or directly, that being liked is the goal. Be nice, be agreeable, don't ruffle feathers, don't speak too boldly, keep the peace, smile even when it hurts. You learn to make yourself smaller so others can feel more comfortable. You play roles, you hide edges. You become a version of yourself that's more palatable than real. And then one day it stops working. Or worse, it starts hurting. Because chasing approval is a silent kind of prison. It binds you to the opinions of people who may never truly know you. It keeps you performing instead of living. And the cost is high. When you prioritize being liked, you abandon your truth. You compromise your standards. You tolerate behavior that disrespects you. And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin to lose yourself. Not all at once, but piece by piece, smile by smile, silence by silence. But something happens when you decide that being respected matters more than being liked. Everything shifts. Your words become intentional. Your no becomes firm. Your yes becomes aligned. You're no longer afraid to disagree. You're no longer desperate to be understood by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop over-explaining. You stop apologizing for your boundaries. You realize that it's not your job to manage how other people feel about your truth. Respect comes when people know where you stand. It comes from consistency, integrity, and self-awareness. It's built when you say what you mean and mean what you say. It doesn't require everyone to agree with you. It requires them to see that you live by your values. That you don't bend every time pressure shows up. That you're not easily manipulated. That you're willing to stand alone if it means standing in alignment with yourself. That's the kind of presence that earns respect. Not the kind that seeks to please, but the kind that seeks to be whole. Being respected doesn't mean being cold or unapproachable. It means you're clear. You're honest. You're grounded in who you are. You can be kind and direct. You can be compassionate without being passive. You can listen without losing your voice. The most respected people aren't the ones who always smile or always say yes. They're the ones who show up fully, unapologetically, and with enough inner stability that other people know where the line is. And here's the truth, not everyone will like you. Even if you're kind. Even if you're generous. Even if you try your best to be fair. Some people will dislike you for no reason at all. Or for reasons that have nothing to do with you. Their opinions are not your responsibility. And when you stop trying to be liked by everyone, you start attracting the right people. The ones who value your authenticity over your performance. The ones who see your strength and respect it. The ones who don't need you to shrink so they can feel tall. Respect is built over time, but it starts with a choice. The choice to be honest with yourself. The choice to stop performing. The choice to say, this is who I am. I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. When you live like that, you free yourself. You stop seeking external validation and start building internal alignment. You stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself the authority to live according to your truth. People respect those who lead themselves, who own their story, who don't chase trends or crowd opinions, who are willing to walk away from what's comfortable to stand for what's right. That's leadership. That's courage. That's influence. And it doesn't come from being the most agreeable. It comes from being the most anchored. There will be moments where your truth offends people, where your boundaries trigger them, where your confidence is misread as arrogance. Let it. You're not responsible for how others interpret your growth. You're responsible for living in alignment with your values, for being honest even when it's uncomfortable, for showing up as the version of you that doesn't need to be liked to feel worthy. Respect also starts with how you treat yourself. If you constantly betray your own boundaries, silence your voice, or tolerate disrespect just to keep peace, you send a message, to yourself and to others, that your self-worth is negotiable. But when you stand firm, when you say no and mean it, when you walk away from what doesn't serve you, you send a different message. You show that your peace is expensive, your energy is valuable, and your time is not for sale. It's easy to confuse being liked with being valuable. But they're not the same. Being liked is often temporary. It depends on how well you fit into someone else's narrative. But being respected, that's lasting. That's built on who you are, not who others want you to be. And the irony is, the more you chase being liked, the less you are respected. But the more you stand in your truth, the more people begin to admire you. Even if they don't always agree with you. When you choose respect over likability, you become a force. You become someone who doesn't just follow, but leads. Someone who sets the tone rather than absorbs it. Someone who is trusted not because they say what others want to hear, but because they speak what is real. That's the kind of person people remember. That's the kind of presence that leaves a legacy, not a legacy of popularity, but of impact. So let go of the need to be liked. It's a trap. It keeps you chasing, compromising, second-guessing. Choose instead to be respected. Choose to be whole. Choose to speak truth, even when your voice shakes. Choose to be consistent, even when it's not convenient. Choose to be yourself, especially when it's not easy. That is the power of maturity. That is the mark of someone who is finally dangerous. Not because they dominate others, but because they are no longer dominated by the need for approval. And once you've reached that point, no one can take it from you. You've already won.